welcome to another video of mine. It's been a good few weeks since I did the last one, which finished off my ELO vinyl collection, and I threatened to move on to another artist and do a different video, but I want to push that back a little bit. I want to do another ELO related video, one I've been thinking about for a while. It's a little bit different. It's not vinyl related, so it might not appeal to everyone that's been watching the other videos, but it's something I've not seen on YouTube, and I thought it was worth a go. So I'm going to go through ELO's media of videos and concerts that's been made available over the years. It's not an area that's full of a lot of different releases. ELO didn't film a lot of their concerts, so you might think there's not a lot there, but there is a surprising amount actually. So I'm going to go through that. It's all out of my own collection. Obviously this is media based, so you can look at most of the things on YouTube. You can find ELO videos and TV appearances from across the years, particularly in the States. So many of you as fans would have probably seen a few of these, but this is going to focus on the hard media, what's actually been available in shops to buy, and so on. And I'm going to start off all the way back in the early 1980s with good old VHS. So anybody around my age and has been a fan for a long time probably invested in VHS way back in the early 80s. So this is, as you can see, one of the original videos for ELO's 1978 Wembley Arena concert in London in the UK, and for many years this was the standard ELO video concert experience for anyone that had not been able to see them live. This comes from 1984. It wasn't the first version of this concert to be released. There was a few very early video releases, even as far back as 1980, when consumer video was just taking off. This was so popular at the time that a few different video companies had their own versions. If I can get the software to work, I'll throw up a few images of those during this video. We'll see. Yeah, so that's one of the oldest things I own in my ELO collection, back from the early 1980s. It's not the oldest one I ever had. When we were getting into video back then, my dad went and did some research and decided that he would buy a Sony Betamax. So my first ELO related video item was the Betamax version of this concert, which sadly came without a cover, because kids were nicking the covers out of the shops at the time. I ended up having a video cassette with a blank case around it, and I persevered with that for a few years until Betamax was going the way of failed formats. Sadly, it was a good format, but it didn't capture the wider public's imagination, and you couldn't buy mini films or TV series or concerts or whatever on Betamax for very long before they got replaced by VHS as the standard. So I reinvested with this from local newsagents, and it's a good version of the show. It's got the broadcast show on it. It's also got a little clip at the front end of British royalty attending the show. It was a gala performance, and also a little bit of the after party after the show. So for those that aren't familiar with that, it might be a good thing to look that up. Maybe it's on YouTube, I'm not sure. It wasn't the full show, as I'm sure many of you are aware. We got a lot of the hits and a couple of album tracks in there. It missed off the El Dorado and Faced Him Music tracks, and the Mick and Hughes solo spots. And the sound quality wasn't brilliant, but you know, this is back in the early 80s, this is VHS, so the sound quality and picture quality for the time was okay. And of course the picture quality was enhanced with lots of special effects. Those of you familiar with this footage will know that Mike Mansfield, who was ELO's video director throughout the 70s, took full advantage of the special effects that the show put on the night, full advantage of the spaceship stage, and produced a lot of video effects in picture, which you see throughout the video footage of this concert. So there we go, that's the earliest bit of ELO Live to be released. Staying with VHS cassettes, we had to wait a few years to get something else. That was in mid-80s, the one I just showed you. So for about 10 years that concert was available on different videos, including that one, and we had to wait until 1991 to get something else, which is this. So this is the very best of ELO. So as it suggests, it's basically music videos. Now back in the late 80s and early 90s, a lot of record companies were producing compilation albums, typically double albums of chart acts, anything from pop to new wave to punk, and also bespoke artists. And it was typical of that period that if you had a compilation, a greatest hits coming out, you would put out video equivalent of that album. So ELO just caught that wave of record company thinking, and we got a compilation of videos. Now what's on here? Well, it's 13 videos, so we get a good portion of the New World Record EP that was filmed, including Living Thing, Tightrope, which is really nice to have, Telephone Line and Rockaria, and they're all pretty much recorded on the same day. Rockaria, or Rockaria I should say, does have some split screen elements in that video. It's a little bit different to the other three, which are more standard presentation performance videos. We get Mr. Blue Sky, Wild West Hero and Turn to Stone from the Out of the Blue video EP. We don't get Sweet Talking Woman, sadly, and we don't get Do Ya from a New World Record, which I believe was also filmed. And then we get a sprinkling of tracks from the Discovery video album that was also produced, including Diary of Horace Wimp, Last Train to London Confusion, Shine a Little Love, Wishing and Need Her Love also included on here. No Don't Bring Me Down is on here. 13 tracks. It could have been maybe 15 or 16. I don't know why they cut it short at 13, but there we go. That was nice to have. And the same year, around 1991, we got another ELO concert experience. We get Fusion Live in London. So this is taken from the Face the Music tour. It was filmed in, I think, March 1976 in London. So we get a completely different track listing to the Wembley gig. What we have on here is more of a blend of hits and album tracks. So from the Face the Music album that this tour was promoting, we get Poker, Knight Rider, Strange Magic and Evil Woman. Far and High was also performed on that tour, but it's not included in the footage, sadly. We also get Showdown, Can't Get Out of My Head, minus the Eldorado Overture, although if you watch this show you will just catch the end of it before Can't Get Out of My Head starts, so obviously it was performed that night. We also get Poor Boy and Illusions in G Major, again some good album tracks from the Eldorado LP, and 105 VH Overture, and at this point in time the band were playing that alongside a shortened version of Do Ya, and we get Mama Bell and Roll Over Beethoven. So it's great to have those. The Face the Music tour was the longest tour that ELO did on stage, so there's a few tracks missing off this, but nevertheless it's good to have it. Directed by Mike Mansfield again, and yeah, so that's the third VHS I've got. So moving on, we're going to move into DVD territory. So jumping a few years ahead to 2001, Zoom was Jeff's latest attempt to reboot the ELO brand name. So the Zoom LP came out, and there was a short number of shows that were performed in support of this album, with the intention to going on a full-blown North American tour, which sadly didn't happen. But in hindsight, Jeff was probably right to cancel that, in my opinion, because the shows weren't selling out particularly well, not quick enough at any rate, and it was a bit early for the ELO wave to come back again and have the kind of interest that it does today. So what do we have on this Zoom release? We have a lot of tracks from the Zoom LP. For example, Easy Money, State of Mind, and All Right, which was the lead single from that LP. We got a lot of the traditional ELO hits, Mr. Blue Sky, Mama Bell, Can't Get Out of My Head, 105 VHS, which always performed again, Evil One, Showdown, Strange Magic, Living Thing, and a few others. We also get a version of One Summer Dream done here live, which is a beautiful album track from Face to Music that hadn't been performed live before or since. We also get Tightrope. Jeff seems to really like Tightrope. He performs it live quite often. And yeah, so so a good set of tracks there. It was hard to find. I don't have the UK release, so I bought this off probably eBay, I think, a good few years ago. So this is, I think, a Hong Kong import. So it comes in a nice little slipcase. It also comes with a little booklet, and surprisingly it includes all the lyrics to the songs performed, which is quite unusual for a music video to have, you know, any form of sort of lyric content within the release. I think this version of the DVD doesn't have the little extras that the UK one had, and I think UK one had fan interviews and a quiz, that kind of thing. It's an early DVD, so that these were early extras to be included. So next up, I'm showing you these in roughly chronological order, but not exactly. So next up is Eagles Rock Entertainment DVD of both the 1978 Wembley show, which we discussed earlier, and the Discovery video album combined now on one DVD. So that was a welcome touch. Both those shows were re-released as separate VHSs by Eagle Rock, but I don't have the VHSs because they're frankly redundant really in my collection, but I have the DVD combining the two. So there's nothing different on the Wembley show, as you might imagine. It's just standard definition version of the video. The Discovery album is all of the Discovery tracks, from Shrine and Liquor Love through to the last track, Don't Bring Me Down. And as far as I know, that's the first time the whole of the Discovery album was released commercially. There might have been a very, very early video in the early 80s of Discovery album video, which may have been German. I'm not 100% confident of that, but it's quite possible there was an early big box version of that video. Somebody out there might have a copy of it in their collection. But yeah, so it's just nice to have the two shows on a DVD, convenient. Other than that, standard presentation, nothing special. But to get something special, we had to wait a few more years, and we got this. So this is again the Wembley 1978 show. So I said it had been released a few times and it was still getting released. The difference is this has been up-spec'd a little bit. So the footage, the film footage is the same because the original raw footage taken on the night no longer exists. So we're stuck with the Mike Mansfield special effects version of the show. Okay, fine, we'll have to live with that. But what we do get is a much more improved sound quality on this version of the concert. So what we've had before on every single release and every TV broadcast of that show, which has been broadcast quite a lot on UK TV, we got the as broadcast sound on the night. So basically it was remixed for television broadcast back in 1978. So we had an enhancement of the backing tapes that ELO had on that tour, which were only used for the musicians to hear what was going on so they could keep in time in a weird environment in that fiberglass constructed set. The audience wouldn't have heard that. So what we get is the sound as the audience heard it on the night. So if you play this version of the concert, you're going to hear a different show to the one that you've been accustomed to previously. It doesn't have the Discovery thing on it. This is a standalone special edition of the Out of the Blue Live at Wembley show. So that's the slipcase. Nice shot on the back of the stage. So inside the slipcase we get this fold out box, which is quite nice there, and there with the DVD printed with the ELO Jukebox logo in the middle. Really nice. It's on this little card thing, so push that out, we can see the whole of the stage. We also get a Fassi Smile of the original concert program that was issued in the UK. So in the UK, ELO only played Wembley Arena for I think 8 nights in London. They didn't tour the rest of the country. There was no Birmingham show or Manchester show. Not that I would have gone, because I was a bit young and wasn't really into the band at the time. I only discovered them a year or so later. But yeah, there was only the London shows, and this program was produced for those shows. And it's probably the most lavish tour program that ELO produced over the years. There hasn't been that many, it's been a few, but this one is really nice, so I'm going to show it to you. So this is a mini replica of that program. So we get full, apart from the advert at the front end, we get full colour photos of the band performing on stage for that tour, with band biogs and write-ups for every band member. Let's go there. And yeah, so that's a group shot. That's probably taken when they were recording the Out of the Blue video EP, I imagine. Mick Kaminsky. So this is a really nice booklet, and it makes the purchase of that special edition worth it. Even if you've got the show on another format, I would recommend getting this. It's also available on Blu-ray, but I'll tell you now, the Blu-ray doesn't improve upon anything. It's what's called an SD Blu-ray. It's even got the adverts from the original program. Yeah, so the Blu-ray version of this is an SD Blu-ray. So it is a straight to Blu-ray transfer of the DVD. Because that's all you've got. You haven't got a high def version of the show, because the high def material doesn't exist. It's not on film, it's on videotape. That's how it was broadcast on BBC television, so that's what they're working with. So that's a nice thing to have. Next up, following on hot on the heels of that, Eagle Rock put out this Electric Light Orchestra Live, the early years. Now this includes the VHS of the Fusion concert from 1976. By the way, why it's called Fusion is because that's the title of the TV show that the film was made for. It was a short-lived live music program directed by Mike Mansfield, for which ELO featured in one episode. Yeah, so this DVD includes that show. It also includes, from 1973, one of ELO's early shows to be recorded for TV, from Brunel University in Bristol, England. And it includes 4 tracks: King of the Universe, Mama Marbell, In the Hall of the Mountain King, and Great Balls of Fire. So that's a nice little set of very early ELO live performance. We also get from 1974 German TV concert performance in its entirety. So here it's pronounced Rockfest, I think it's pronounced. So this was a regular German TV show, and they featured live music. I guess it's the equivalent of Britain's The Old Grey Whistle Test, which was a regular show mixing live music, studio performances, interviews, and magazine features on tours and stuff like that. This, I think, was probably something like that in Germany. And ELO came into the studio, did a live set in the studio, and we got Daybreaker, which is a cracking version of Daybreaker, Showdown, Day Tripper, which is the cover of the Beatles track they did at that time, Mixed Solo, Mama Marbell, In the Hall of Mountain King, Great Balls of Fire, and Oliver Beethoven. Yes, so it's basically a full show. It's a mini show in studio, but nothing's missing off that performance as far as I'm aware. There's also a full band interview at the end of that where the German presenter interviews each member of the band in English, which is really interesting to hear them talking, because you don't often get to see that. So it's standard definition. I'm trying to look to see if it's like 5.1. It says Dolby Surround 5.1. I just have to take it at face value that it is. I've not tested it again. I mean, I played this, I've listened to it, it sounds really good to me. So I highly recommend having that alongside the special edition of the Wembley show from 1978. If you're going to have anything on physical media, VHS live, go for those two. Yeah, so there we go. A good release. The last ELO DVD, I've got some other stuff, but the last original ELO DVD I'm going to mention is that one. Slightly controversial. It's an unofficial release. It's one of these rock interview in-depth analysis type DVDs that comes out. There's lots of these to do with different artists, and they're basically a documentary style presentation where you've got music industry people such as rock journalists and musicians talking about a particular artist and talking possibly about a particular aspect of that artist's career. This one focuses, I think, on early ELO, on the early album, the first album. I haven't watched this for a while, but I do remember it. And you always get concert footage or promo video footage in the background of some of these things, and of course they're being talked over. So it's legal. It may not be official release, but it's not an illegal release. It's a legal release. They can do that because it's been presented as a documentary. It's presented as journalistic work. So they show you this stuff. Now what you've got in the background, and I'll show you the photos on the back of this. What you've got there is very, very early ELO. You can see Roy Wood in the centre picture there, performing the tracks and cover versions from their very, very first live performances. And it's the only footage known to exist with Roy Wood performing with the band in that first sort of 12-month, 18-month period. So that was interesting to see that. Now I know it's broken up by a lot of discussion around the band, and it's very clippy. But on here is bonus feature. That if you engage the bonus feature, what you get is most of the surviving footage in its entirety, without any talking over by any of the show's presenters. So you do get to see 4 of the tracks performed live without any of that interference. So effectively a live performance uninterrupted. So from memory, I think it's Queen of the Hours, Jess Boogie No. 2, which was later changed into In Old England Town for the second album, Sessions. So that's a very early version of that. Queen of the Hours, I'll mention that one. Whisper in the Night, with Roy changing his invitation and singing that sort of solo, and then Great Balls of Fire. So yeah, so it's worth having this just for that, because it's very rare footage. You're not going to get anywhere else in any other official release. And I was lucky I picked this up for about 50p from a car boot sale, so that was nice. And talking of very early ELO, we'll take a step back from that slightly and talk about the Move. So a lot of ELO fans are also Move and Roy Wood fans, so you might not think there's much of anything in the way of Move archive performances on DVD. Well, there is some, most of which has been released in the last few years. So this is a 3-disc collection by the company that's currently reproducing the Move and Roy Wood's archive back catalogue. So this is from Static Recordings, and they've been re-releasing all of the Move's back catalogue, remastered with lots of bonus material. This particular release is called Magnetic Waves of Sound, the best of. So it's basically a compilation. So we got CDs in here which are a compilation of the Move's best tracks, which is the red disc. The blue disc is a DVD. So that's what we're interested in here. So I'll just give you an idea of what's on here. So we've got the Move on Air TV broadcast 1967 to 1970. So it starts off with the one and only promo movie that I'm aware of that the Move ever made, which is I Can Hear the Grass Grow, promotional film from 1967. Now that's not a promo film like we know it today, or even from the 80s or 90s. This is a very rare piece of film. It looks like it's very amateurish in nature, ad hoc put together, with the band filmed outside on some sort of jolly to the countryside, and Carl Wayne doing his best to make it look like he's referring to the title of the film, I Can Hear the Grass Grow, the title of the song. The band, comical, they don't really know what they're doing, but it's a silent movie with the track played over it. And then we get 3 tracks from German Beat Club. So Germany's Beat Club was another TV show that was their equivalent to Top of the Pops, which was of course the famous UK chart hit show. So the Move were on the Beat Club quite a lot in the 60s, and there's a lot of tracks on here taken from those performances. I'm not going to read them all out because you can look this up for yourself if you're really interested, but there's quite a few tracks recorded on that show. We get one Top of the Pops performance, which is Fire Brigade, and I think that's maybe the only 60s performance by the Move on the show that survives. And then the real good piece on here is a complete set of songs played live in BBC TV studios for a show called Colour Me Pop from January 1969. So this was a short-lived pop show. I think it ran to something like 13 episodes, of which only about 3 episodes survive in the vaults. The Move is one of those 3 that survives. So we get virtually the entire show almost as broadcast, colour footage, singing a lot of the Move's hits and a couple of cover versions and album tracks. So that's really good to have. We get more Beat Club stuff, and it goes into 1970 with Brontosaurus and When Alice Comes Back to the Farm. Yeah, so highly recommend it. That. Get another Move DVD that's out there. Not very expensive. These things are still easy to find. This one's a European import, but it's been on sale in lots of shops in the UK. It's the Move, The Lost Broadcasts. So what this is, it's 11 tracks, all taken from Germany's Beat Club performances. So there's some duplication with this collection, but there's differences. This collection gives you the Beat Club performances as broadcast. This one gives you the performances as recorded, which means we get extra tracks on here that didn't make it onto TV broadcast, and we also get extended footage of the tracks that were broadcast because it's got the full track from beginning and end, so no audience or credits overlapping these tracks. And we get we get Blackberry Way, Brontosaurus, Curly, The Words of Aaron, Eddie James, 2 versions of that, Down on the Bay, 2 versions, Fire Brigade, When Alice Comes Back to the Farm, and Wild Tiger Woman. The reason we've got extra versions of Eddie James and Down on the Bay is because the publishers have included the rehearsal tracks that they did in the German studio before the cameras were well, the cameras were switched on, of course, but before they had the special effects overlaid onto the tracks. So it's really good to see the band performing with the headphones and everything, and then taking them off and performing the track again with all the special effects in the background. So if you're really into that stuff, that's interesting to look at as well. It's interesting to see Jeff Lynne on the later tracks with his sunglasses in a very early live performance alongside Bevan Roy, Bill Hunt on keyboards, and Richard Tandy is playing bass with the Move at this point. So he was supporting them with a lot of live stuff. Rick Price was the bass player. for the Moves' last album, but or a couple of albums, but he had left by that point. So that's good to have as well. So a couple of more things to go, a couple of Blu-rays now. So Jeff has obviously reinvented ELO as Jeff Lynne's ELO in more recent years, and has gone on a number of tours, which I've been lucky enough to see a couple of those shows. The first time he did this was in Hyde Park in London in, I think, around 2014, if my memory serves. So he was doing this one-off show for BBC. It was the Hyde Park show was BBC Radio 2 annual event, where it was a big festival, and they would invite a headline act to do it for that year, and they invited Jeff Lynne to do it for 2014. So he brought a version of the band back together for that, and had the BBC Concert Orchestra sort of support him in the background, so it's more of an experience with the whole orchestra as well as the band. So this was released a little while later, the whole footage of that show, plus bonus interview with Jeff Lynne, plus bonus documentary, Mr. Blue Sky, the story of Jeff Lynne and ELO. So that was a BBC produced documentary that came out a few years ago. Very rare in the sense that it features heavily Jeff being interviewed at his home in California. It features Paul McCartney, George Harrison's widow, Roy Orbison's widow, 2 or 3 other people are interviewed, including Richard Tandy, who was around at the time. And it's a really good documentary. You see a lot of Jeff's around Jeff's house, around his different rooms and his recording studio, and it's interesting to see all the photographs and various record awards that he still treasures and still has them on the walls throughout his whole career. It's a really interesting show. For the actual concert in Hyde Park, Jeff performs a number of the standard hits, but he also includes All Over the World, which is now on the set list. Stepping Out, a really lovely track from the Out of Blue album, he introduces to the live set at this point. So that's well worth having. And finally, another Blu-ray is the CD Blu-ray combination of Wembley or Bust show. So Jeff took the band on at the tour, and they did a big show at Wembley Stadium, not Wembley Arena from the 1978 venue, but Wembley Stadium. So we get a really lovely fold out set, and we get 2 CDs, and then we at the far end we get the DVD or Blu-ray of the concert. So it's much the same track listing as the Hyde Park one, but it expands it to take in more of the hits. We also get Standing in the Rain. So Jeff has now reintroduced Standing in the Rain as the opening track for that tour. This was due in 2017, so I think he toured again the following year and maintained Standing in the Rain as the opening track to the show. We also get Twilight, and from memory I think Time's prologue segment is also played before Twilight. We get Xanadu, which is now added to the set list, and the usual tracks. So that's a really good set to have as well. And that's pretty much it. There may be some other bits and pieces out there, the odd track or song on a compilation of multiple artists and things like that. But that's basically the lion's share of ELO and related that's available on VHS or DVD Blu-ray. So hopefully that was of some interest to you. Hopefully also the volume on this video is a bit stronger than it's been on my other vinyl releases. I've got quite a big desk here, so I'm sat quite away from the mic, so I've moved this a bit nearer, so hopefully it's a bit clearer for people. Yeah, so I'm going to carry on doing some videos at some point in the future. I will move on to other topics, I think. I threatened to do a Queen video, so that's most certainly going to be in the next one, which may have interest to some of you, but I'm sure it will find another audience as well. Alright, so thank you for watching this, and take care.